King Charles has just delivered a crushing blow to Meghan Markle, and this punishment may change the royal family forever. In a move that shocked even the most seasoned royal watchers, King Charles has officially declared that Meghan Markle's children, Archie and Lilibet, are permanently excluded from the line of succession. This decision, delivered in a sealed decree, accuses Meghan of a breach of royal integrity, sending shockwaves through the monarchy. What does this mean for the future of the royal family? And why is King Charles taking such a drastic step? Stay tuned as we unravel the truth behind this explosive royal decree and the devastating consequences for Meghan's children. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. The world watched with bated breath when King Charles made the announcement that would shake the very foundation of the monarchy. Meghan Markle, once hailed as the future of the royal family, had just been dealt a devastating blow, one that would forever alter her relationship with the British royal family and her children's futures. In a move that stunned both supporters and critics alike, King Charles declared that his son Harry's children, Archie and Lilibet, would never hold royal titles or be allowed to ascend the throne. This decree, sealed and immediate, echoed with the weight of centuries of royal tradition, yet it was also a direct rebuke to Meghan Markle, who had spent years advocating for her children's recognition as legitimate heirs. The monarchy, long shrouded in tradition and secrecy, had just taken a step that seemed unthinkable to many. Meghan's calls for recognition had always been a point of contention within royal circles. Some argued that her demands for titles were nothing more than a desperate grab for power and influence, while others saw her as a symbol of modernity, advocating for her children's rights in a world far different from the one the monarchy was accustomed to. But in a stunning turn of events, King Charles's decision to publicly and permanently exclude Archie and Lilibet from the royal line of succession sent a clear message. The royal family was unwilling to bend to Meghan's will, no matter the cost. As the news spread, social media erupted with passionate debates as people weighed in from both sides of the Atlantic. Meghan's supporters, still fiercely loyal to the Duchess of Sussex, argued that the monarchy was punishing her for daring to stand up for her children and for pushing back against the long-standing structures of royal privilege. Her critics, however, were quick to call it a well-deserved consequence, accusing her of attempting to manipulate the royal system for personal gain. This moment, they argued, was not just about Meghan's title demands. It was a culmination of years of tension, missteps, and misunderstandings between the Duchess and the royal family. In the hours following the announcement, a deep sense of uncertainty gripped the royal family. What would happen to Meghan and Harry now? Would this decision drive an even deeper wedge between them and the rest of the royals? Could this be the final break that sealed the fate of their relationship with the institution they had once been a part of? Or was it, as some believed, a much-needed reset for a monarchy on the verge of collapsing under the weight of modern demands and historical expectations? King Charles's decision wasn't made lightly, and it wasn't just a response to Meghan's title demands. It was a statement of intent. An assertion of control over the future of the monarchy, which had been in turmoil for years. His actions sent shockwaves through the royal household, revealing the lengths to which he was willing to go to protect what he saw as the integrity of the monarchy. For years, Meghan had been at the center of a storm, stirring the pot with her public critiques of royal life and her battles with the media. But now, in one decisive stroke, King Charles had issued a challenge to her and her children, one that would define their place in history. But what exactly did this decision mean for Archie and Lilibet? How would it affect their lives moving forward, and what consequences would they face as a result of being excluded from the royal family's hierarchy? While the royal family had long been known for its complex and secretive structure, few could have predicted that King Charles would make such a sweeping, definitive declaration, one that stripped his grandchildren of their royal birthrights. This wasn't just a matter of titles or privileges. It was a matter of legacy, family, and the very foundation of the royal institution. For Meghan Markle, this was a bitter pill to swallow. She had spent much of her time in the royal spotlight fighting for her children's place in the royal family, arguing that their heritage and lineage should be recognized and respected. Yet, in the face of King Charles's decree, all of her efforts seemed in vain. Her children, once seen as the future of the monarchy, were now left on the outside looking in. This would undoubtedly deepen the rift between her and the royal family. But more importantly, it raised questions about the future of the monarchy itself. Had King Charles just made a calculated move to protect the royal legacy? Or had he, in the process, irreparably damaged the family unit? This decision, seemingly so final and resolute, had far-reaching implications, not just for Meghan and her children, but for the monarchy's place in the world. The decision also highlighted the broader debate surrounding royal titles and the role they play in society. In an age where modernity and tradition clash at every turn, what does it mean for a family to claim power, privilege, and influence based on something as ancient as bloodlines? Meghan Markle's case had become emblematic of the larger tension between old-world royal values and the new-world pressures of public opinion, media scrutiny, and personal agency. And in the eyes of many, this decree by King Charles was a defining moment in the monarchy's battle to preserve its relevance in the 21st century. But the drama wasn't just contained within the royal walls. Across the globe, people watched with rapt attention as Meghan's demands were denied and her children's future in the royal family was sealed with the stroke of a pen. The world wondered, would this be the beginning of the end for Meghan's royal aspirations? Or would she fight back, as she had done before, to prove her point and secure a different future for her children? The world awaited her next move. In the aftermath of this bombshell, the stage was set for a royal showdown, one that would be talked about for years to come. King Charles, ever the monarch, had thrown down the gauntlet, and Meghan Markle was now forced to reckon with the consequences. How she responded, and what the future held for her children, remained to be seen. But one thing was for certain, this was a moment that would forever change the course of history for the British royal family. King Charles has long been regarded as a monarch who, despite years of public service and preparation for the throne, was hesitant to make sweeping changes. However, his decree on Meghan Markle's demands for royal titles marked a dramatic shift in his reign. This wasn't just a simple refusal, it was a calculated and bold declaration that would forever alter the royal family's dynamics. To truly understand the weight of King Charles's actions, it's necessary to delve deeper into the circumstances that led to this unprecedented move. The timing of the king's decision couldn't have been more significant. As the world was captivated by the ongoing drama surrounding Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, King Charles knew that his response had to be decisive. After all, the stakes were incredibly high. The royal family's reputation was on the line, and with the weight of centuries of monarchy traditions behind him, Charles had no choice but to act in a way that reflected the best interests of the institution he had vowed to protect. This wasn't just about Meghan's demands. It was about ensuring the integrity of the monarchy for future generations. For years, Meghan and Harry had been a focal point of royal controversy. From their public departure from royal duties to their bombshell interviews with Oprah Winfrey, their every move had been scrutinized by the media and the public. But the most significant point of contention had always been Meghan's plea for her children to be granted royal titles. In Meghan's eyes, her children deserved to be treated equally, particularly because of their royal bloodline. She had made it clear that she wanted her children to be recognized as rightful heirs to the throne, in line with the legacy of the royal family. However, King Charles, now in his role as monarch, had a different vision for the future. The issue was more than just titles. It was a matter of royal protocol, tradition, and maintaining the respect of the monarchy. Titles and succession were not just handed out. They were earned, tied deeply to the history and legacy of the royal family. To grant titles to Meghan's children would, in Charles's view, have undermined this centuries-old tradition. And so, after careful deliberation, King Charles issued a sealed decree that permanently excluded Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession and denied them royal titles. This decision wasn't made impulsively. The king's advisors had spent weeks, if not months, analyzing the situation. The royal family's reputation was at stake, and Charles knew that any misstep could cause irreparable damage. In his mind, the integrity of the monarchy had to be preserved above all else, and allowing Meghan's children to hold royal titles would have sent the wrong message. The monarchy had weathered countless storms, but this issue, one that was rooted in modernity and the challenges of maintaining tradition in a rapidly changing world, was a test of its resilience. King Charles had seen the royal family's reputation suffer over the years. The scandals surrounding Prince Andrew, the growing rift between William and Harry, and the ongoing criticisms of the monarchy from various quarters had only intensified. The British royal family, which had once been the epitome of grace and stability, was now facing an era of intense scrutiny and division. The king understood that the monarchy could no longer afford to appear weak or indecisive. This decision, while controversial, was a statement of strength, of asserting royal authority when it was needed most. The decree itself was chilling in its finality. It wasn't just a refusal, it was a permanent action. Archie and Lilibet, despite their royal heritage, would never hold titles or be allowed to claim any royal position. This was more than just a personal slight against Meghan and Harry. It was a direct challenge to their vision for their children's future within the monarchy. By issuing this decree, King Charles not only excluded his grandchildren from the line of succession, but also sent a message to the rest of the world. The monarchy would not bend to modern pressures. For Meghan, this was a devastating blow. She had fought tirelessly for her children's recognition, using every platform available to her to push for their rightful place within the royal fold. Her desire for equality, for her children to be recognized on the same level as their cousins, was met with resistance at every turn. She had hoped that King Charles, who had been sympathetic to some of her causes in the past, would see the merit in her argument. But this decree revealed the harsh reality. King Charles, the man who had once been seen as a reformer, was committed to upholding the monarchy's traditional values, regardless of how out of sync they might be with the modern world. King Charles's decision wasn't just about protecting tradition, though. It was also about sending a message to Meghan about her role within the royal family. Meghan had long been seen as an outsider by many members of the royal household, and her attempts to reshape the monarchy in her image had often been met with resistance. While she had been celebrated by her supporters for speaking out against what she perceived as the monarchy's outdated practices, her critics viewed her actions as an affront to the very fabric of royal life. To them, Meghan was seen as someone who sought to dismantle the institution, rather than respect it. King Charles's decree was a statement that he would not allow the monarchy to be fundamentally altered by those outside its traditions, no matter how high-profile they were. The impact of this decision would ripple through the royal family for years to come. Meghan and Harry, already at odds with their relatives, now found themselves on the outside looking in. Their children, whom they had hoped would one day play a central role in the monarchy, were permanently excluded from that future. For Meghan, this exclusion was the ultimate insult, a rejection of everything she had fought for. For Harry, it was a painful reminder of the ongoing tension between him and his family, a tension that seemed to grow with every new public statement or royal appearance. The ramifications of King Charles's ultimatum weren't just personal, they were political. By taking such a definitive stance, Charles ensured that any future challenges to his authority would be met with a clear response. The royal family was no longer a passive institution, subject to public opinion and the whims of outsiders. It was a monarchy that was firmly in control, and Charles was prepared to defend it against any threat, no matter how personal it might be. As the news spread, the reactions were swift and varied. Supporters of King Charles praised his strength and resolve, noting that this decision was necessary to preserve the monarchy's integrity. To them, Meghan's refusal to conform to royal norms had been a disruptive force, one that needed to be addressed head-on. On the other hand, Meghan's supporters decried the move as a blatant act of retaliation, a final attempt by the royal family to silence her and her family. They saw this as a personal vendetta, one that would have lasting consequences for the royal family's reputation. The king's ultimatum had set the stage for what was sure to be an ongoing battle. Meghan, now faced with the stark reality of her children's exclusion from the royal fold, would no doubt continue to fight for their place in the royal family. But the question remained, how far would she go, and what would be the ultimate cost? The royal family, for its part, had drawn a line in the sand, signaling that it was no longer willing to tolerate any attempts to alter its deeply entrenched traditions. The game had changed, and King Charles had made it clear that he was prepared to take the most drastic steps to protect the monarchy. When King Charles made the shocking decision to deny Meghan Markle's children royal titles and exclude them from the line of succession, the world was left in suspense, waiting for her response. Meghan had spent much of her time in the royal spotlight advocating for her children's rights, particularly their entitlement to royal titles. She had publicly criticized the institution's outdated structures and, at times, directly called for changes within the royal family. So, when the king's decree was delivered, many wondered how Meghan would react. Would she accept the decision quietly, or would she once again challenge the monarchy? The weight of the moment could not be overstated. Meghan's response to the king's actions would not only affect her own future, but also the future of her children and her relationship with the royal family. Her supporters believed she would fight back, armed with her unyielding determination to secure a place for her children in the monarchy. Her critics, on the other hand, expected her to lash out, accusing the royal family of racism and unfair treatment. But whatever her reaction, it was clear that this moment would define her legacy within the royal family, and perhaps even outside it. The first hint of Meghan's response came in the form of a public statement. Though the Duchess had been relatively quiet since the King's decree, her voice echoed through the media when a close friend of hers revealed that she was devastated by the decision. According to the friend, Meghan felt deeply betrayed by the royal family, especially by King Charles, who she had once considered an ally. She had hoped that, despite the tensions between her and the monarchy, King Charles would have been more understanding and would have granted her children the titles they deserved. For Meghan, this was not just a personal loss. It was an affront to her children, who had been excluded from the very system that their father had been a part of for so long. But Meghan's response wasn't limited to sadness or frustration. It was filled with determination. Her public supporters quickly rallied behind her, calling the decision a direct attack on her children's future. Meghan's loyal fans, many of whom had followed her journey since her engagement to Prince Harry, believed she had been unfairly treated by the royal family from the start. They pointed to the years of media scrutiny, the public battles over privacy, and the perceived lack of support from the monarchy. For them, this decision was the last straw. The monarchy had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They were ready to stand with Meghan, fighting for her children's right to be recognized as legitimate members of the royal family. However, Meghan's critics were not far behind. They wasted no time in accusing her of overreacting and turning her children's exclusion into another battle for attention. "This is Meghan doing what she does best," said one royal expert. "She's playing the victim card again, trying to make this about her children's future when it's really about her own desires and expectations." Meghan's critics saw her demands for royal titles as another example of her seeking to manipulate the system for her own benefit. They believed that her constant attempts to reshape the monarchy and her image had finally reached their breaking point. The media also had its say, with newspapers and television stations around the world broadcasting opinions on Meghan's next move. Some outlets speculated that she would take legal action, challenging the decree in the courts. Others suggested that she would escalate the matter through public statements and interviews, hoping to sway public opinion in her favor. Whatever course of action she chose, it was clear that Meghan was not one to back down easily. In the days following the King's decree, she was seen meeting with her legal team, fueling speculation that a legal challenge was imminent. But Meghan also knew that any direct confrontation with the monarchy, especially in the courts, would only deepen the rift between her family and the institution. The monarchy was not an organization that took kindly to public disputes, and Meghan had already experienced the consequences of her previous challenges. To fight the King's decision head-on would not only place her children's future at risk, but also put her and Harry in a perpetual battle with the royal family. It was a fight that would likely span years, if not decades, and could irreparably damage their standing in the UK and abroad. As the days passed, Meghan's public silence grew louder. Instead of issuing a public statement or organizing a press conference, she turned to a more strategic form of communication, her personal and private channels. Sources close to Meghan revealed that she was deeply reflective during this time, considering her next steps carefully. "She's not one to make rash decisions," one source said. "Meghan is very calculating, and she knows that she has to play the long game. Her children's future may be at stake, but she's also thinking about her own legacy and how she's perceived by the public and the royal family." Many believed that Meghan's silence was a sign of her desire to make a bigger impact with her next move. This wasn't just about the royal titles. It was about reclaiming her power and positioning herself as a force to be reckoned with. Meghan had always prided herself on her independence and her ability to control her narrative. She had left the royal family, in part, to escape the restrictions and expectations that came with the title of Duchess. Now, faced with the King's decree, she had to find a way to balance her desire for recognition with her need for autonomy. Some experts believe that Meghan would use her platform to appeal directly to the public, bypassing the monarchy entirely. By framing the issue as one of injustice and discrimination, she could gain the support of millions who felt that the royal family was out of touch with modern values. Meghan's supporters saw her as a modern-day feminist, challenging the patriarchal structures of the monarchy and advocating for her children's right to be treated equally. The decree, they argued, was not just about titles. It was about control, about maintaining a system where the royals held power over everything, including who gets to be part of the family. But Meghan also knew that this battle was not just about public opinion. It was a fight for the soul of the monarchy itself. To challenge the king's decision directly would require more than just words. It would require action. And Meghan, always a woman of action, was already planning her next move, one that would leave a lasting impact on both the royal family and the world. The weeks following the decree were filled with whispers and rumors. Some claimed that Meghan was preparing to launch a global campaign to change the way the monarchy operated, while others believed that she was quietly negotiating with various world leaders to garner support for her cause. But as time passed, it became clear that Meghan was playing the long game. She was not going to make hasty decisions or take impulsive actions. Instead, she would wait for the perfect moment to strike, when the royal family's grip on power was most vulnerable. For now, Meghan Markle's response to the king's decree was shrouded in mystery. The world watched as she carefully plotted her next steps, fully aware that every move she made would be scrutinized by the press and the public. Her children's future hung in the balance, but so too did her own future within the royal family. It was a battle that would test her resolve and determine whether she could still carve out a place for herself in a family that had rejected her at every turn. In the wake of King Charles's controversial decree excluding Meghan Markle's children from the line of succession and denying them royal titles, the royal family's response was both swift and resolute. While Meghan's supporters in the media and public were quick to rally behind her, calling the king's actions an affront to modern values and equality, the monarchy's inner circle remained largely silent, except for a few key voices. Among them, Prince William and Princess Anne were quick to show their unequivocal support for King Charles, rallying behind him in what many saw as a necessary move to preserve the integrity of the royal family. The decision to publicly back King Charles wasn't just a statement of family solidarity, it was a declaration of loyalty to the institution of the monarchy itself. Prince William, in particular, understood the stakes better than most. As the future King of England, his role was one that required absolute adherence to the traditions and rules that had governed the royal family for centuries. To allow Meghan Markle's children to hold titles or claim any royal position would have undermined not just the current order but the very foundation of the monarchy. William's support for his father's decision was rooted in a deep understanding of the challenges facing the monarchy in the modern world. Over the years, William had grown increasingly aware of the need to preserve royal traditions while navigating the pressures of a fast-changing world. He knew that King Charles's actions, while controversial, were necessary to maintain the monarchy's position in British society. By backing his father's decree, William signaled his commitment to the monarchy's long-standing traditions and his own vision for the future of the royal family. Princess Anne, too, was a staunch supporter of King Charles's decision. As one of the most experienced members of the royal family, Princess Anne had always taken a pragmatic approach to royal matters. She was known for her no-nonsense attitude and her commitment to the royal family's core values. Like her brother, Prince William, Princess Anne understood the delicate balance that needed to be struck between tradition and modernity. She knew that the monarchy's survival depended on its ability to adapt without compromising its values. In her view, Meghan Markle's demands for royal titles for her children were an affront to that delicate balance, and it was her duty to support her brother's decision to protect the monarchy's integrity. The royal family's united front was not just about personal loyalty to King Charles. It was a carefully considered stance on the future of the monarchy itself. The decision to exclude Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession sent a clear message to the public. The royal family was not willing to bend to modern pressures and was committed to upholding the values that had defined it for generations. It was a message that, while controversial, was designed to reaffirm the monarchy's relevance in an era where public opinion often seemed to challenge its very existence. While the media frenzy surrounding Meghan's response was intense, the royal family's public backing of King Charles was calm and measured. This was not a time for public grandstanding or outbursts. Rather, it was a time for unity and quiet strength. The royals understood that any misstep, any sign of weakness, would only serve to undermine the monarchy's authority. By standing firmly behind King Charles, they sent a clear message that they were united in their commitment to the monarchy and its future. This sense of unity within the royal family was also reflected in their decision to maintain a low profile in the days following the announcement. Rather than engaging in public debates or responding to the media frenzy, the royal family chose to focus on their duties, continuing to carry out their public engagements and fulfilling their roles without getting embroiled in the drama surrounding Meghan and Harry. This was a deliberate strategy, one that demonstrated the royal family's resilience and its determination to maintain its dignity in the face of constant scrutiny. But the royal family's support for King Charles wasn't without its challenges. There were whispers within the palace about the potential fallout from Meghan's exclusion and the impact it could have on future relationships within the family. While William and Anne were quick to align themselves with their father's decision, there were concerns that Harry and Meghan's already strained relationship with the family could become even more fractured. The decision to publicly distance Meghan's children from the royal line of succession would undoubtedly deepen the rift between Harry and his family, making it even more difficult for the couple to reconcile with the monarchy in the future. For King Charles, this was the first real test of his leadership as monarch. He had ascended to the throne after the death of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and now he was facing one of the most significant challenges of his reign. The decision to deny Meghan's children royal titles was not just about the individuals involved, it was about the future of the monarchy itself. As King Charles looked to cement his legacy as monarch, he knew that the decisions he made in these early years would define his reign for decades to come. By standing firm on the issue of royal titles, King Charles demonstrated his commitment to protecting the monarchy's long-standing traditions and ensuring its relevance in the modern world. It was not just the immediate family who supported King Charles in this decision. Behind the scenes, senior advisors and palace officials were equally resolute in their backing of the king. Many of these individuals had spent decades serving the royal family, and they understood better than anyone the importance of maintaining the monarchy's integrity. They knew that King Charles had made a difficult decision, one that would have far-reaching consequences, but they also believed it was necessary to protect the royal institution from further destabilization. These advisors and officials were quick to remind the public that the monarchy had faced similar challenges in the past and had always emerged stronger. They pointed to the enduring strength of the British monarchy throughout history, noting that it had weathered numerous crises, from scandal to war, and had remained an integral part of British life. The monarchy, they argued, was built on principles that transcended individual desires and personal grievances. The king's decision to exclude Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession was not just about Meghan and Harry, it was about protecting the monarchy for future generations. In the days following the decree, several members of the royal family, including Prince Edward and the Countess of Wessex, were seen fulfilling their royal duties, demonstrating their continued commitment to the monarchy and their support for King Charles. Their presence at public events served as a reminder that the royal family was united in its commitment to the monarchy's future, despite the tensions surrounding Meghan and Harry. Ultimately, the royal family's response to King Charles's decision was one of unity and support. They understood that the monarchy's survival depended on its ability to adapt to the changing times while remaining true to its core values. By standing firmly behind King Charles, they demonstrated their unwavering commitment to preserving the monarchy for future generations, even in the face of personal challenges and public scrutiny. The decree issued by King Charles, excluding Meghan Markle's children, Archie and Lilibet, from the royal line of succession, marked a pivotal moment in the monarchy's modern history. While the emotional and public fallout from the decision was immediate and undeniable, the legal ramifications were far more complex, involving intricate constitutional principles that govern the British royal family. Understanding the legal implications of this decree requires a deeper look at the structure of royal succession, the legal frameworks that support it, and the potential challenges Meghan could face in attempting to overturn or challenge the king's decision. The British monarchy, like most royal institutions, is governed by a complex set of rules that have evolved over centuries. At the core of these rules lies the concept of royal succession, the order in which members of the royal family ascend to the throne. Succession is governed by both statute law, laws passed by Parliament, and common law, which has developed through historical precedent. Royal titles, too, are subject to strict rules about inheritance and succession, and these titles are not just ceremonial. They carry significant legal weight in terms of status, privileges, and duties within the monarchy. Historically, the line of succession to the British throne was determined by descent, legitimacy, religion, and parliamentary approval. The succession was primarily based on the direct male line of descent, which was altered in recent years by changes to the law. The Succession to the Crown Act of 2013 marked a major change in the succession laws, ending the system of male preference primogeniture and adopting absolute primogeniture, meaning that the firstborn child, regardless of gender, would be first in line. However, despite these changes, the fundamental principle that only those who are born into the royal family's legitimate line of descent can inherit royal titles remains unchanged. This legal framework is what has ultimately led to King Charles's decision to exclude Archie and Lilibet from the royal line of succession. Despite being the grandchildren of a monarch, the children of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle do not automatically qualify for royal titles or the privilege of succession. The key factor here lies in the royal family's expectations of behavior, loyalty, and conformity to the traditional structures of the monarchy. Meghan Markle's public statements, her and Harry's decision to step down from royal duties, and their continuous critiques of the institution over the past few years have led to a shift in the way the royal family views their role in the family hierarchy. While King Charles's decree appears absolute in its intent, it is not without potential for legal challenge. The first question that arises is whether Meghan Markle, or any other member of the royal family, could legally contest the decision in British courts. The British legal system is clear about the monarchy's status as a constitutional institution, meaning that the courts generally refrain from interfering with royal matters that are deeply rooted in historical custom and Parliament's prerogative. However, there have been instances in history where royal actions were scrutinized under legal frameworks, and such scrutiny could be one avenue for Meghan to challenge the decision. A key question in this situation would be whether King Charles's decree constitutes an act that falls within the domain of royal prerogative or whether it encroaches upon the rights of the royal family's members. Legal experts are divided on this matter. On one hand, the royal family operates under the doctrine of royal prerogative, which grants the monarch significant powers in matters of succession, titles, and other state affairs. However, the monarchy's powers are increasingly constrained by law, particularly in light of the constitutional monarchy that the United Kingdom has evolved into over the past few centuries. The royal family's powers, once absolute, are now subject to checks and balances, particularly through Parliament and the courts. If Meghan Markle were to pursue legal action, the challenge would likely focus on whether King Charles's exclusion of her children from the succession violated any existing laws or agreements. In the absence of any direct legal statute that grants children of royals the automatic right to hold titles or inherit positions in the line of succession, Meghan could argue that the exclusion was a violation of her family's rights. She may also seek to argue that the king's actions were discriminatory, particularly if she believes the decision is motivated by personal animosity or a desire to retaliate against her public criticisms of the monarchy. However, the legal process for challenging such a decision would be lengthy and complex. In the past, royal matters have been handled with discretion and respect for the institution's traditions. Meghan's legal team would need to navigate the delicate relationship between the monarchy and the British legal system, which has a long history of deferring to royal prerogative in matters of succession. One of the most significant legal issues surrounding King Charles's decree is the potential involvement of Parliament. Although the royal family has traditionally operated under the royal prerogative, the monarchy's powers are not absolute. Over the centuries, Parliament has passed laws that have shaped the monarchy's role, including laws that govern succession and the granting of titles. The Succession to the Crown Act of 2013, which reformed the rules surrounding royal succession, is a key example of how Parliament has exercised its influence over the monarchy's functions. Meghan's potential legal challenge could involve calling upon Parliament to reconsider the decision. While it is unlikely that Parliament would directly intervene in a royal matter such as the exclusion of Archie and Lilibet from the succession, the political ramifications of such a decision could prompt discussions within Parliament about the future of the royal family. For instance, if Meghan were able to galvanize public support for her cause, she could attempt to build political momentum to pressure lawmakers into introducing legislation that would reverse King Charles's decision or at least call for a public inquiry into the royal family's actions. The likelihood of such a move gaining traction, however, remains slim. The monarchy enjoys widespread public support, and Parliament is generally reluctant to intervene in the affairs of the royal family unless it directly affects national security or other pressing political matters. Nonetheless, a legal battle involving the royal family and parliament would mark an unprecedented shift in how British law interacts with the monarchy. Such a case could have long-lasting consequences, not only for Meghan and her children, but for the future of the monarchy itself. While the legal system may ultimately be the final arbiter of King Charles's decree, public opinion will play an essential role in shaping how the legal battle unfolds. Meghan Markle has always been a polarizing figure. She has built a significant following of supporters who view her as a champion for progressive values, particularly in her fight for gender equality, mental health awareness, and racial justice. These supporters could become an essential part of her legal challenge, advocating for her children's right to be recognized by the royal family and pushing for reforms to the monarchy's outdated traditions. On the other hand, Meghan's detractors have long criticized her for what they see as an attempt to undermine the monarchy's integrity. They believe that her demands for royal titles and her public critiques of the family are a sign of her disregard for royal traditions and her personal ambition. Public sentiment in the UK and abroad will likely play a significant role in shaping the outcome of any legal challenge, as the monarchy is deeply intertwined with public perceptions of fairness, tradition, and legitimacy. If Meghan were to pursue a legal challenge, her supporters would undoubtedly rally behind her, but the monarchy's entrenched position within British society makes it highly likely that King Charles's decision would be upheld. The royal family's ability to remain above the fray of public opinion has been a key aspect of its survival over the years, and any challenge to its authority would likely be met with strong resistance from both the monarchy and the British public. Ultimately, Meghan Markle's legal recourse against King Charles's decree is uncertain. While the royal family's actions may be challenged in the courts, the legal framework surrounding royal succession and titles is complex and resistant to change. Meghan's best chance for success lies in garnering public support and potentially lobbying Parliament to address the issue through new legislation. However, any challenge to King Charles's decision will undoubtedly face significant hurdles, both legally and politically. The ramifications of this legal battle will extend beyond Meghan and her children, influencing the future of the monarchy itself. The delicate balance between royal prerogative and modern legal frameworks will be tested, and the outcome of this challenge could have long-lasting implications for the British royal family. As Meghan considers her next move, she must carefully navigate the legal and political landscape, aware that her actions will define her place within the royal family for years to come. The decision by King Charles to exclude Meghan Markle's children from the royal succession was not only a legal and public statement, it was also deeply personal. For Meghan, it was an affront to her children's future, a direct challenge to everything she had fought for in her relationship with the royal family. But for King Charles and other members of the royal family, it was about much more than the titles or positions held by Meghan's children. It was about the integrity of the monarchy itself and the perceived threat Meghan posed to its very foundation. Meghan Markle's journey from an outsider to a central figure in the royal family has been fraught with tension, and the king's decision was the culmination of years of growing frustration and division within the royal ranks. The crux of the issue, as many royal insiders see it, is Meghan's refusal to conform to the traditional expectations that come with being a member of the British royal family. From her outspoken advocacy for social causes to her decision to step back from royal duties, Meghan's actions have consistently challenged the norms and traditions that define the royal institution. For King Charles, this challenge was more than just a personal irritation, it was a threat to the very integrity of the monarchy. The British royal family has long been viewed as a symbol of stability, tradition, and continuity. Its authority has been built on centuries of adherence to customs and rituals that have stood the test of time. Meghan, with her modern ideas and willingness to publicly criticize the monarchy, represented a disruption to that stability. While the royal family has always had its share of controversies and scandals, Meghan's outspokenness and her efforts to reshape the monarchy and her image were seen as a bridge too far. This perception of Meghan as a disruptor of royal integrity was one of the key factors in King Charles's decision. To him, allowing Meghan's children to inherit royal titles would have been a tacit acceptance of her methods, a signal that the monarchy could bend to the whims of outsiders who refused to respect its traditions. In many ways, the decision was a test of the monarchy's resilience in the face of modern challenges. Could the royal family maintain its authority and relevance in a world where public figures like Meghan Markle were increasingly able to challenge established institutions? The answer, as King Charles made clear, was no. The monarchy would not yield. For Meghan, This exclusion was not only a blow to her personally, it was a blow to her children's future. Archie and Lilibet, despite being direct descendants of a monarch, would be denied the opportunity to carry on the royal legacy. In Meghan's mind, this was not just an issue of titles, it was about recognition and respect. She had always believed that her children deserved the same recognition as their royal cousins, particularly given their royal bloodline. In her eyes, the monarchy's refusal to grant them titles was not just a legal matter, it was a personal one, rooted in a rejection of her family and everything they stood for. But to many within the royal family, Meghan's actions had made this moment inevitable. For years, she had been at the center of a storm of public controversy. Her interviews, her battles with the media, and her critiques of the royal family's practices had earned her a reputation as a figure who was unwilling to play by the rules. Whether it was her public criticism of the monarchy's treatment of her and Harry, her refusal to adhere to the royal family's traditional expectations, or her high-profile departure from royal duties, Meghan had made it clear that she was not interested in following the traditional path set out for her. To some, her actions signaled a profound lack of respect for the institution that had welcomed her into its fold. For King Charles and other senior members of the royal family, Meghan's disregard for royal traditions was seen as a breach of royal integrity. The monarchy, they believed, was built on principles of service, duty, and respect for hierarchy. Meghan's refusal to conform to these principles was viewed as an affront to the institution. While her supporters may have seen her as a progressive force, challenging outdated norms, many within the royal family viewed her actions as a direct attack on the monarchy's legitimacy. This clash of values, the monarchy's commitment to tradition versus Meghan's desire for change, was at the heart of the conflict that led to King Charles's decision. In many ways, Meghan's journey into the royal family had been marked by tension from the very beginning. Her marriage to Prince Harry was seen by some as a break with tradition, as she was an American actress with a divorced background. While she was initially embraced by many members of the royal family and the British public, her critics were quick to point out her outsider status and question whether she truly understood the responsibilities that came with being a member of the royal family. For Meghan, the pressure to conform to royal expectations was immense, and it quickly became clear that the traditional royal life was not something she could easily accept. Her decision to step back from royal duties in early 2020 was a clear indication that Meghan was unwilling to play by the rules. The royal family's decision to allow Harry and Meghan to step back and live more independently was unprecedented and marked a significant shift in the monarchy's approach to modernity. While some saw it as a brave move, others viewed it as a sign of weakness, a capitulation to Meghan's demands. For King Charles, this was the point of no return. The decision to allow Harry and Meghan to step back from their royal duties had already raised questions about the future of the monarchy, and the continued refusal to adhere to its traditional expectations only deepened the divide between Meghan and the rest of the royal family. But what many within the royal family saw as Meghan's defiance, others saw as her attempt to assert her independence and reclaim her voice. Meghan had always been a vocal advocate for women's rights, mental health, and racial justice. Her decision to speak out on these issues, even at the cost of alienating her family, was seen by her supporters as an act of courage. Meghan's refusal to be silenced by the royal family's expectations was a key aspect of her public persona, and it was one that endeared her to millions of people around the world who admired her for challenging authority and fighting for what she believed in. However, as much as Meghan's supporters may have admired her activism, it was her vocal criticism of the royal family that ultimately led to her exclusion from the line of succession. Meghan had made it clear that she felt the monarchy was out of touch with modern society, particularly in how it treated women and people of color. Her public statements about her experiences with the royal family, including her interviews with Oprah Winfrey and her candid reflections on the challenges she faced within the institution, had painted the royal family as an institution that was not willing to evolve. For King Charles, these statements were a betrayal of the very values that had sustained the monarchy for centuries. In the eyes of the royal family, Meghan had crossed a line. Her refusal to respect the monarchy's traditional structures and her ongoing public critiques were seen as a fundamental challenge to the integrity of the royal family. The decision to deny her children royal titles was the culmination of this growing divide. For King Charles and his supporters, it was a necessary step to preserve the monarchy's reputation and ensure that it remained true to its traditions. For Meghan, it was a painful rejection of everything she had hoped for, a sign that, despite her efforts to carve out a place for her family, she and her children would never truly be accepted by the royal family. This decision, while painful for Meghan and her supporters, was ultimately about preserving the integrity of the monarchy. King Charles's actions were a stark reminder that the monarchy's traditions were not negotiable, and that those who chose to join the family had to respect the institution's values. Meghan's refusal to conform to those values, no matter how well-intentioned her actions may have been, was viewed as a direct threat to the monarchy's authority. In the end, King Charles's decision to exclude her children from the succession was not just about titles. It was about sending a clear message that the monarchy's integrity would not be compromised. The exclusion of Archie and Lilibet from the royal line of succession marked a turning point not just in the history of the British monarchy, but in the futures of Meghan Markle's children. For them, the decision would have far-reaching consequences, shaping their roles within the royal family and their place in British society. The ramifications of being denied royal titles and succession rights were not merely ceremonial. They had significant implications for their future identities, their relationship with the royal family, and their standing in the public eye. Archie and Lilibet were born into a family with a long history of privilege, power, and public attention. As the grandchildren of a reigning monarch, they were initially expected to inherit certain privileges, including royal titles and the right to eventually become part of the royal line of succession. However, King Charles's decision to permanently exclude them from that line set a new precedent, one that would force the world to re-examine the role of these two children within the royal fold. For many, the decision to deny them royal titles seemed like an act of finality, a severing of ties between Meghan, Harry, and the royal family. But what did this really mean for Archie and Lilibet? What would their lives look like in the aftermath of such a sweeping decision? And how would they navigate their place within a family that had effectively removed them from its future? From a legal standpoint, Archie and Lilibet would remain the children of Prince Harry and, by extension, the grandchildren of King Charles. They would continue to enjoy the benefits of their royal heritage, including the immense wealth, influence, and connections that come with being part of the British royal family. However, without the formal titles and official recognition, their status within the royal family would be permanently altered. They would no longer have the ability to claim titles such as prince or princess, nor would they be considered in the line of succession to the throne. The decision also marked a clear shift in the royal family's approach to the concept of legacy. Historically, the British monarchy has been a symbol of continuity, with each generation passing down the responsibility and privilege of ruling. But in excluding Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession, King Charles was sending a message that the royal family was no longer purely about bloodlines and lineage. It was about loyalty, behavior, and conformity to its traditional structures. For Archie and Lilibet, this meant that they would not be groomed for public roles or royal duties. They would live their lives as private citizens without the responsibilities that come with being part of the royal family's core. For Meghan, the impact of this decision was deeply personal. She had always envisioned a different future for her children, one in which they would be recognized as equal members of the royal family. She had worked tirelessly to secure that recognition, believing that her children deserved to have their place in history, just as any other royal child would. Now, with the king's decree, her dreams for them had been shattered. No longer would Archie and Lilibet grow up with the privileges and status of their royal cousins. They would face a future in which their connection to the monarchy was a distant one, relegated to the past, and denied any meaningful future within the royal family. But what about their relationship with the other members of the royal family? The question of how King Charles's decision would affect Archie and Lilibet's future interactions with their cousins, aunts, and uncles was a significant one. Would they be welcomed into the royal fold at all, or would they be permanently distanced from their relatives? Meghan's supporters argued that this exclusion was a form of punishment, one that would leave Archie and Lilibet ostracized from a family that had once embraced them. Critics of the monarchy, particularly those who sympathized with Meghan's position, saw the decision as a betrayal of the idea of family unity. They believed that no matter what personal or public issues the royal family had with Meghan and Harry, it should not be allowed to affect the children, who had done nothing wrong. For the royal family, however, this decision was about maintaining the integrity of the institution. As much as Meghan and Harry were seen as disruptive forces, the monarchy's commitment to tradition and protocol was even more important. Allowing Meghan's children to inherit royal titles and succession rights would have sent the wrong message to the public. It would have suggested that the monarchy could be easily swayed by public opinion and personal relationships. By excluding Archie and Lilibet, King Charles ensured that the monarchy remained above the fray, its legitimacy intact and its authority unchallenged. Yet, for Archie and Lilibet, this decision left a legacy that was far from certain. While they would still retain their royal heritage, they would no longer be part of the public-facing, official role that had been expected of them. Their lives would no longer be scripted in the way that royal children's lives often are, with public appearances, duties, and responsibilities stretching out before them. Instead, they would grow up as private individuals, free from the constraints of royal expectation, but also distanced from the privileges that had once seemed their birthright. In the public eye, this exclusion would change how people viewed them. While they would always be recognized as the grandchildren of a monarch, the absence of titles or succession rights would mean that they would not be treated with the same level of reverence or expectation as their royal cousins. They would no longer be seen as potential future leaders of the British monarchy, and their place in history would be defined by their relationship to Harry and Meghan rather than their position within the royal family. For Archie, the decision was particularly significant. As the firstborn son of Prince Harry, he had been the subject of much public attention from the moment he was born. His status as the great-grandson of Queen Elizabeth II and the grandson of King Charles made him a prominent figure in the royal family's future. The decision to exclude him from the line of succession meant that he would no longer be part of that future, a reality that would shape his identity as he grew older. While Archie and Lilibet would likely live private lives, the shadows of their royal lineage would always follow them. What this means for Lilibet, the younger of the two children, is similarly profound. Lilibet, though born into the royal family, would also be excluded from the official roles that many assumed she would inherit. Like her brother, she would be free from the public duties and obligations that come with being part of the royal family's working members. But in many ways, her future will be defined by the absence of these roles. Lilibet will have the chance to live a life outside the spotlight, a life that many royal children can only dream of. But with that freedom comes a sense of separation from the legacy of her family, one that will be difficult to reconcile as she matures. The impact on Meghan and Harry's relationship with their children will also be significant. Having fought so hard for recognition and acceptance within the royal family, this decision has forced them into a position where their children will grow up without the formal recognition that they once sought. While Meghan and Harry's decision to step back from royal duties had already distanced them from the family, the exclusion of their children from the succession deepens that divide. It will force them to reconsider what it means to be part of a family that has chosen to reject their children's place within it. But despite this, Meghan and Harry may also view this exclusion as a chance to forge their own path. In many ways, this decision could be liberating for them. Without the constraints of royal titles or expectations, they are free to define their family's future on their own terms. For Archie and Lilibet, this could mean a life of greater autonomy and personal agency, free from the shadow of royal obligation. However, it will also mean growing up in a world where their connection to the monarchy is tenuous at best, and the future that once seemed assured is now uncertain. As King Charles's decree to exclude Meghan Markle's children from the royal line of succession reverberated throughout the world, the royal family found itself at a crossroads. The decision marked the culmination of years of tension, public battles, and growing divisions between Meghan, Harry, and the monarchy. The royal family's unwavering commitment to tradition and royal protocol had collided head-on with the modern ideals of equality, recognition, and the desire for personal agency. For Meghan and Harry, this decree represented a painful rejection of their family's future within the royal fold, but it also symbolized their struggle against an institution that they felt could no longer serve the evolving needs of a modern world. The royal family, led by King Charles, had acted decisively to protect the monarchy's integrity, making it clear that no matter the personal relationships or the public outcry, the traditional values that had long sustained the crown would not be compromised. King Charles's refusal to grant royal titles to Archie and Lilibet was not just about titles or succession. It was a message that the monarchy would not yield to external pressures, no matter how high-profile they were. For Meghan, the decision was devastating. She had fought tirelessly for her children's recognition within the royal family, hoping to secure their rightful place in the legacy of the monarchy. To be denied that recognition was not only a personal blow but a symbolic rejection of her family's place within the British royal institution. Meghan had hoped that King Charles would understand her desire to see her children respected and included in the monarchy, but instead, her hopes were dashed by the king's firm and final decree. The legal implications of the king's decision were significant, and though there were potential avenues for legal recourse, it became clear that the monarchy's position would not be easily challenged. While Meghan could try to rally public opinion or even lobby Parliament, the institutional weight of the royal family was a formidable force, and the monarchy's deep-rooted tradition of royal prerogative meant that such a challenge would face significant hurdles. Behind the scenes, members of the royal family, including Prince William and Princess Anne, rallied behind King Charles, recognizing the gravity of the moment and understanding that the future of the monarchy depended on maintaining its authority. The decision to exclude Meghan's children from the succession was not just about the personal issues between Meghan and the royal family. It was about protecting the future of the monarchy itself, ensuring that it remained relevant and legitimate in an increasingly complex and modern world. But the impact of King Charles's decision was not just political, it was personal. For Archie and Lilibet, the decision meant that they would no longer be part of the royal family's official hierarchy. Their futures, once assumed to be tied to the throne, were now uncertain. While they would still carry the legacy of their royal heritage, they would not be groomed for the same public roles as their cousins. Instead, they would grow up as private citizens, free from the expectations and responsibilities of royal life but also separated from the privileges that came with being a part of the monarchy. The future for Archie and Lilibet was now shaped by this exclusion. They would live in the shadow of the royal family, still part of the greater royal lineage but permanently removed from the official line of succession. For Meghan and Harry, this decision was a painful reminder of the deepening divide between them and the monarchy. Their children, despite their royal bloodline, would never hold the titles that their royal cousins took for granted. The future that Meghan had once envisioned for her family within the royal fold was now a distant dream. Yet, for Meghan and Harry, the decision also provided an opportunity. Without the constraints of royal titles and expectations, they were free to carve out their own path. No longer bound by the limitations of royal duty, they had the chance to define their family's legacy on their own terms. But with that freedom came the reality that they would forever be outside the royal family's circle, their connection to the institution a tenuous one at best. The royal family's decision was a clear indication that modernity and tradition could no longer coexist as seamlessly as they once had. Meghan's outspokenness, her desire for change, and her willingness to challenge the monarchy's authority had sparked a fundamental rethinking of the royal family's role in contemporary society. The monarchy, for its part, had drawn a line in the sand. The king's decree was a definitive statement that the royal family would not change to meet the demands of outsiders. It would remain anchored in its traditions, regardless of the personal cost. In the end, King Charles's decision was not just about Meghan, Harry, or even their children. It was a statement about the monarchy's survival in a world that was increasingly questioning its place in society. The royal family had endured centuries of scrutiny, scandal, and upheaval, but this moment represented a challenge unlike any other. The monarchy had to decide whether it would bend to modern pressures or stand firm in its commitment to tradition. King Charles chose the latter, and in doing so, he sent a message that would echo through the generations to come. As for Meghan and Harry, the future remains uncertain. They have been rejected by the monarchy, but their legacy is still being written. Will they continue to fight for a place within the royal family, or will they forge their own path outside of it? The world watches as they navigate a complex and ever-evolving situation, their children's futures forever intertwined with the monarchy's delicate balance of tradition and change. The legacy of this moment will likely define the course of the British royal family for years to come. For Archie and Lilibet, the decision means that they will grow up in a world that is simultaneously connected to the monarchy and yet separate from it. For Meghan and Harry, it marks a new chapter in their ongoing battle for recognition and respect within an institution that has shown no signs of changing to accommodate their vision for the future. And so, as the world watches, the story of Meghan, Harry, and their children continues to unfold, a tale of tradition, rebellion, and the future of one of the world's oldest and most enduring institutions. From the perspective of the monarchy, King Charles's decision represents a necessary assertion of royal authority. The British royal family has always been an institution that operates on tradition, and this decree underscores the importance of preserving those values. The monarchy has long stood as a symbol of continuity and stability, and for King Charles, the integrity of the crown must remain untarnished by personal disputes or public demands. To allow Meghan Markle's children to inherit titles and positions within the royal family would have been seen as yielding to external pressures, undermining the monarchy's long-standing traditions. King Charles, by acting decisively, has made it clear that the monarchy will not bend to modern sensibilities or the demands of those who do not understand or respect the institution. For Prince William, the decision to support his father reflects his belief in the monarchy's ability to evolve while maintaining its core principles. As the future king, William is aware of the challenges the royal family faces in balancing tradition with modernity. He understands that his role in shaping the monarchy's future will require making tough decisions. While he is committed to the monarchy's legacy, William has also shown an interest in modernizing certain aspects of royal life. His support for King Charles's decision suggests that he views it not as a personal slight to Meghan and Harry, but as a step towards securing the future of the royal family. Princess Anne's perspective, grounded in her years of experience in the royal family, emphasizes the importance of duty, responsibility, and respect for tradition. As someone who has always prioritized the monarchy over personal gain, Anne's support for the king is rooted in her unwavering belief that the monarchy must always come first. Her public silence on many of the royal family's most controversial issues has often been interpreted as an expression of loyalty to the institution rather than to any individual family member. Anne's backing of King Charles is a reflection of her commitment to ensuring that the monarchy remains a stable, respected institution for future generations. From Meghan Markle's perspective, the decree represents a painful rejection of everything she had hoped for her children. Her advocacy for a more inclusive and modern monarchy had been at the heart of her efforts since her marriage to Prince Harry. She has long criticized the monarchy for what she perceives as its outdated, rigid structure, which she believes has caused harm to both its members